Welcome to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. Are you a goofball that loves Giants football? If so, sit back and relax as we talk about the team that both excites and frustrates us so much. And now, here are your goofball hosts, Drew and Rob.
Welcome, fellow goofballs, to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. I am Drew, joined as always by...
I'm me, Rob. Apparently, the sleepyhead in the room.
Yes, the sleepyhead in the room. But apologize to those who are here with us live here. We're having some computer issues. Me primarily, actually. I want to see if Rob can't even take the blame here. It's all on me. My computer would not load anything up. It would not get the graphics going for the show or anything like that. So it would have been kind of a boring show without any of that stuff there. So we had to, give it a second to kind of turn it off and on, wait for like forever to load for some reason and everything. But yeah, we're up and running now. That's what matters.
There we are.
Yes, we may not run a tight ship, but today we're talking about tight ends. That's for sure.
Hey now.
Oh yes. Hello.
Way to tighten it up.
Now, unlike the wide receiver group, where we literally talked about 20 different players and only got to like third, fourth round people, guys, this is not a big tight end group. I'm going to tell you that, guys, right now, up at the bat. Like, we went to 10 tight ends, and that's it. And by the time we got to number 10, we were literally had a few of the people that we listed were like 6th-round pick kind of people. That's how little there is in the tight end group. You want to know why the Giants are signing tight end after tight end in case Darren Waller retires? That's why. There's not that many of them out there. But we're going to go over a few. There are a few intriguing names out here, a couple of people that need a little development that could go ahead and, potentially do something good in this league, and a few people that are considered like automatic, like NFL quality players, and one guy who's probably like the biggest tight end prospect out there in 3-4 years, easy. I mean, it's that kind of class. It's a little weird. It's a little top heavy here, but let's get right into it there. But you know what, guys? We're going to go ahead and talk about the bottom up first. So you want to hear about the big names? You got to wait. We're going to start off here with number 10. Tip Ryman out of Illinois. First off, now when this man gets into the NFL, this is like the moments I wish John Madden was still around, because he's like, oh, look, it's just a tip. He would say it.
100%.
Yes, he's blocking it with a
nice
tip.
Circle with a couple circles around him.
So Tip Raymond out of Illinois, like I said, 6'5", 271 pounds. So nice size for a tight end, that's for sure. 22 years old. Last year, 12 games, 19 receptions, 203 yards, 60.1 PFF grade there. Year prior, 13 games, 19 reception again, 174 yards, and a touchdown. So not much of a receiving threat there for Tip there. But he's quick off the snap. He does have good hands. It's a very, very low drop percentage there. He's also an above average tackler. That's the reason why most people looking at him as a person to potentially draft. It's for his blocking abilities. Good size on there. As far as the issues, as far as the cons wise there, the biggest issues with him really is he's got no twitch whatsoever. What I mean by that is like he runs a route like a robot. There is no adjustment based on what the defender does whatsoever. He's also got trouble with the press as well, which is kind of crazy considering his size. Again,
that's why it's always just the tip.
This is the guy who you're going to look at if you want a blocking tight end to be like your third tight end and see if you can develop him a little better receiving wise and see if he turns out to be something else better in this league there. So that's why we got him as a 6th-round grade here. And that's where I think he's going to go. He's going to go in that kind of range there to somebody who needs a back end tight end there kind of thing. That's just a back end tight end and wants just a tip.
That's it. Wants a back end tight end for the tip.
Oh my. All we know is in the 6th round, tipping is encouraged.
Who knows? He may drop to 7.
You never know. You never know. But yeah, let's get into number 9 here for you guys. Number 9 is Jared Wiley. All righty, Jared Wiley, last 2 years played over at TCU. Prior to that, played 19 to 21 over in Texas. So yeah, he's a Texas boy through and through. Went from one Texas school to the next at that point. Surprised he didn't try to get Texas Tech in there somehow or something like that. 6'6", 249 pounds, 23 years old. Last year, 47 receptions, 520 yards, 8 touchdowns. Year prior to that, 24 receptions, 245 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So definitely showed a good amount of improvement here in this last year. That's for sure. I like to seeing that there, but definitely some issues still because his receiving is his big stuff. He's got good yak. He's got good hands. He's quick for his size, and I think he's got a high ceiling for being a potential late round pick as well, because the stuff that he needs work with is stuff that I think he can work on. You know what I mean? It's not like it's like you got it or you don't got it kind of stuff there. The stuff like the speed, the good hands and all, he has that. What he needs is he needs some work on blocking, and that's all technique. He's still aggressive when he goes to block. He still tries. Like he gets a participation trophy each time he goes out there. He's just not very good at it. And yeah, like I said, I think that if you get a guy in there who's going to work with him and teach him to block better, he'll be better at it. He also does have trouble getting separation as well. Obviously, it didn't hinder him too much there this past season in TCU with some decent receiving numbers for a tight end there. But it's something at the next level that I think would affect him there. So he's got to improve on that as well. Overall, another guy we got a 6th round grade on at that point. So between Jared and Tip there, it's just a matter of, do you prefer a guy who's a blocking tight end to develop, or do you prefer a guy who's a receiving tight end? I put Jared above Tip just because of the fact that I feel like he has potential to go ahead and fix the blocking issues he has, whereas I don't think Tip is ever going to be a great receiving tight end.
Correct. There's a little bit more of a ceiling to Jared over here. You see the talent. Like if you even look at his 2022 with 24 receptions for 245 yards, he's in the same ballpark with 47 at 520. So like he's consistent. He puts in the work. Like a lot of the tape shows that he's a hard worker. So like with the right coach, like you said, maybe he could be a C grade level blocker in this league.
And remember too, guys, a lot of the biggest names out there at tight end are not the 1st round picks. We talked about this last year. We talked about tight ends, but it still holds true. The guys who are the 1st round picks don't always pan out. They're actually a pretty low success rate of them being stars. The guys who are the stars are the ones that are the 4th round or later for some reason. It's just weird how it works out. Darren Waller for us, I know we're a little frustrated with him when he's going to retire. Is he not going to retire? It's undrafted, if I remember correctly. I think Travis Kelce was a 4th round pick at that point.
4th or was he 3rd?
I thought he was a 4th round pick. I could be wrong. I don't have it in front.
It's in that ballpark. I think it was either low 3rd, high 4th. I forget.
George Kittle wasn't exactly a high draft grade, if I remember correctly, either at that point there. I mean, again, this is a position that the NFL scouts have the hardest time figuring out who's legit and who's not for some reason at this position. So I think it'd be fun to kind of keep an eye specifically at tight end how we do, because if we're right, NFL, one of you teams should hire us. One of you teams should hire us. All right, let's get next up here. Number 8, the Ocho. AJ Bardner out of Michigan. Oh, yeah. And Stop me if you've heard this before, but we should draft this guy because he has a ton of potential from Michigan. That's like the theme with every single freaking group. J.J. McCarthy, great potential. Roman, we talked about him during the wide receivers. Great potential. Here's another guy, A.J. Barner. They keep talking about the potential. I'm not going to draft based on potential. I'm going to draft based on what I see right now and what I like right now. And then I'm going to look at the potential then after that and say, okay, he might go above him because I see a higher ceiling, like we just talked about between the last two tight ends here. A.J. Barner, like I said, played Michigan last year. 3 years prior to that, played at Indiana. 6'6", 251 pounds, 23 years old. So decent size, got some decent experience here in the college ranks there.
Still pretty young.
Last year, he had 15 catches.
15
22
games.
I'm sorry, 15 games, almost 15 catches, 22 catches for 249 yards, 1 touchdown, but an 82.2 PFF grade.
It means he was a pretty good blocker.
Exactly. 10 games in 22, 28 receptions, 199 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Again, people think this guy has potential as a receiver, and a lot of people have him higher up in their boards because of this. But here's what he really is. He's probably the best blocking tight end in this entire draft. He is that good of a blocker. It's like having a tackle that occasionally catches the ball. I la Howard Cross back in the day for Giant fans there.
Yeah.
That's where
That's
he's
what
at.
I was going to say.
So good hands. Again, very, very low drop. I think he had like 4 drops his entire college career. He has, a good size as well. But again, the issue is limited receiving production. And he's just not fast. I don't see him ever becoming a huge receiving threat because he doesn't have what you naturally have to develop that. If you can't get open because you're not faster or as fast as the guy who's guarding you, you better be a damn good route runner to get open ever.
Yeah.
Let alone consistently.
For a guy like this, I mean, he does have a high ceiling to be a good tight end in this league. Top 5 receiver? Probably not.
No.
But a team like Kansas City that has a pretty good line, they're looking for weapons. Great, they have Travis Kelce. I'm not saying he's going to be the next Travis Kelce, but that peekaboo when they do like a 22-man, they set up a 2 tight end scheme. He's got to be over there. Like, are they running? Are they passing? Look, Travis Kelce's open. Boop. Yep.
Yeah,
Bonner gets the ball.
I feel like it's one of those things where they're going to have to, figure this out as you go as far as is he going to be a receiver ever or not? I don't think he's going to be. I really don't. I just don't see it. Again, good hands. Can't be open. He can't be open at all. I think what you're going to see is maybe if there's a team with a young quarterback, maybe a developing offensive line. I wonder who I'm thinking here. Perhaps the Giants even. That's the type of team that would pick him up because you're getting an excellent blocker who's going to help whatever side's having trouble that particular game, and you're going to give your quarterback some more time. And that's a key component. So he's got a place. He's got a place in the NFL, guys. I'm not suggesting otherwise, but I still think he's just a 6th-round pick talent because of the fact that he is a blocker, and that's it. I do think that somebody may take him as early as the 4th or the 5th because of the Michigan part. There's something about these Michigan guys. They had so much potential. They got held back by the offense. I'm not buying it. I'm sorry, guys.
The whole offense.
Buying it.
Got held by the whole offense.
Yeah. Except for Corum. The running back's the only guy that actually wasn't held back, apparently.
Yeah. I don't know. I agree with what you were saying about a young team with a struggling offensive line. I can also see a team that has, an experienced quarterback, some good play and depth, and picks them up for tricks plays and picks them up for an extra blocker, if you will.
Yeah, even a team like Cincinnati, who's always had trouble blocking for Burrow, that's the kind of team that I could see taking him. You're gonna pick him up purely for the blocking.
That's a good team.
Yeah,
Them are the Rams.
You always pick the Rams. The Rams are drafting everybody.
I just said Kansas City first. What are you talking about?
I'm just saying you always pick the Rams.
It's usually Oakland. Oh, I said Oakland.
Oh yeah, you do like
Vegas.
Oakland. Yeah, Vegas. Raiders. The Raiders.
Maybe I should say the names.
Next up, number 7, Dallin Hawkins. Oh yes, this is another guy who changed schools. We put a lot of those in this draft here. You notice there in the picture he's Colorado State, and in the video part he's BYU because he only played the last year over at Colorado State. Prior to that, 18, 21, and 22 he played over at BYU. He took 19 off there due to injury. 6'3", 241 pounds, 23 years old. Also lines up as a fullback at times. Last year, his 1 year at Colorado State. Let me just put it this way. There are times when somebody moves into school and you're like, that might not have been the right move to do that. This was definitely not one of those cases. Last year, 12 games, 64 receptions, 767 yards, 6 touchdowns, 1 rush for 1 yard and a touchdown, 68.5 PFF. Prior to that, his last season at BYU, he was just 3 games, 9 receptions, 86 yards, and a touchdown. And he had a knee injury. Quite frankly, he was fed up with how BYU was using him. They weren't using him the way that Colorado State did at that point as a consistent receiving threat. He thought he had that ability. He wanted a chance to show that ability before he entered a draft. And again, that move paid off. Pros, he's got a high motor. He's got a lot of effort in blocking. I can't say that I see the results there, but the effort is there. Again, I don't mind if it's a guy who's raw that I got to teach it as long as there's effort. If there's effort, that means they're going to get good. They care about their craft. They care about how they look doing it. Very good hands. Cons-wise, probably needs to add a little bit of weight. Again, it's 241. If you want to make it in the NFL as an actual tight end, inline tight end, you're going to probably need to get a little bit, but 10 more pounds added onto that frame there. Average athleticism overall. He's not going to be a burner. He's not going to run down the middle of the field for a 40-yard, dash to go to the end zone at that point. It's just not who he is. And he's not the best at yards after the catch either at that point. So, but what he is he's a guy who's going to get between 5 and 10 yards. He's going to get open with his actual route running at that point. And there's a place again for that in the NFL.
About to say, constantly do that. You constantly got first downs coming to you.
Yeah. He's going to be end zone, third down kind of guy at that point. That's going to be a great security blanket for a team. I'm telling you, that's where his role is going to be. That's where he's going to live. I do think he's going to end up being like that 4th or 5th round pick. I think teams are going to be turned off a little bit by the lack of athleticism he has there. But I think they're going to realize once they get him into camp, whoever drafts him, who cares about the athleticism? Look what he does in the field. He finds a way to get open. He finds a way to get the ball. And that's what matters. So I think he'll be a decent backup tight end in this league. I don't think he'll ever be a crazy good starter, but I think he's going to be a decent backup tight end at that point. And if he ever does become a good blocker, I could see him getting into the starting role with somebody. It's all up to him.
I was about to say, I could
put work into that.
I can see him being part of a duo double tight end scheme.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, depending on what kind of offense he's in and how often they use the receiving tight ends.
Like if he came into the draft 10 years ago, he would have the Patriots all over him in the 5th round.
I don't know. He hasn't killed anybody.
Touche. Yeah. That we know of.
That we know of. You never know.
Yeah.
We start doing the rumors now. He's in a gang. Get him.
Let's be wrong on this one, right?
The Colorado State gang at a BYU. Yeah. Something tells me it's not his crowd.
But I'm just saying, I mean, old school, Bill Belichick run offense 10 years ago. Always had
Oh yeah, like I
not
said,
the
I
best,
think
but a dual threat tight end scheme, and that's perfect. That's perfect for
like I said, he's going to be a good tight end too for somebody. And like I said, he's got that ceiling as a potential one if he can actually learn to block better. But I think tight end two is where he'll probably live for the most of his career, and I think he'll be a decent one. So, next up,
Next.
it is time for number 6. Number 6,
Say.
Theo Johnson, not to be confused with Theo Huxtable. I could tell you wanted to say something after I said that, Rob.
Oh, I said, or Theo Vaughn.
Oh,
Not the comedian.
Theo Huxtable's the best. 6'6", 259 pounds, 23 years old at a Penn State, and spectacular size overall. He's a former wide receiver too, as well, which is interesting. He came into college as a wide receiver.
He's a big boy for a wide receiver.
Yeah, obviously he gained a little weight in college. Got a little extra money in that card. You buy the money. I didn't go to college. I don't know what's that thing you buy the card. We use the.
I also never
We didn't go to college. That's why we couldn't be behind the guy.
Yeah.
I forget what it is. They used to give him a credit card when you go to college that you get like a certain amount of points which you can buy food with at that point. I forget what the commissary card or whatever they call it. Yeah, he got a lot of commissary money apparently. In 13 games, 34 receptions, 341 yards, 7 touchdowns, a 62.5 PFF. In 11 games, 20 receptions, 328 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He's got a high ceiling, and that's one thing I like about him because he's still a work in progress. That's where he's at. This guy's going to end up being kind of similar to Dallin Hawker there. He's going to be a guy that you're going to have as a backup tight end, and you're going to see if you can develop him eventually to become a full-time starter there. He's got great hands. He's got great size. The problems with him is he's also got a low floor. That's part of the problem with raw players at that point. High ceiling, low floor, because you don't know where they're going to end up and what their best is going to be.
It also depends on what team he goes to as well, because
the
right coaching when it comes to that point.
Yeah, he does need to also learn to expand his route tree. There's certain routes he runs very well, and Penn State just kind of stuck to those routes. They're like, okay, you do this well and this well. We're going to stick to that.
Yeah.
Apparently, college is not the place you go to learn. He's not very good at blocking overall, so he's got to learn in that as well. Again, when you're a wide receiver, that's not nearly as big a thing as when you're a tight end. He's also the guy who's just not very good at yak, which is weird because we showed 2 videos in the beginning with him doing yak well, but it's just not his specialty. So I do think that once you get him into a team at that point, he's going to be the backup receiving tight end that you put on there, kind of like Lawrence Cager has been for us the last couple of years, or a guy that you look to develop into an eventual starter at that point. And there's guys I've seen have both opinions of him. I don't know which one he's going to be because, again, that's what you got. You got a high ceiling, low floor possibility. The range is everywhere. But if you like what you see and you think you're the guy who can coach him and you think he's a guy who is coachable, because again, no one ever talks about that when they look at rookies. Is he coachable? If this guy is coachable, if Dallin Hawker is coachable, those are 2 guys that could develop into good tight ends here in this league. So, next up, guys, is number 5. So before we do that, guys, we got to pay the bills real quick and go through all the comments here. Connor's been going wild in the comments section.
Connor's been busy.
I see him. He's going crazy.
Enjoying the show. Looking for more goofball action? Consider a membership at buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs. Memberships start at just $5 and give you additional goofball access. One-time support payments also available starting at just $3. buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs.
Oh yeah. So our comment section started with us actually apologizing for being late. I thought that was a very nice, a very
So thoughtful of us.
proper thing to put up there. And then Connor just attacks us. Says, see, when the big hand is on the 12 and the little hand is on the 9, that's 9 o'clock. That's when it's bright out, 9 a.m. When it's dark out, it's 9 p.m.
Well, in summer, 9 p.m. sometimes is it's dusk.
So even though he's berating us, we apologized again and said, sorry, I need a digital clock. Deb says, Rob must be napping again. I said, nope. Computer issues for Drew, almost back up. I was talking in third person. I don't know why. Connor says, it's time for a training class with these two goofballs. And I said, on punctuality, good luck. We'd be late for class. That'd be hilarious.
I'll be there at 9:30. Start now.
You know, honestly, if you ran a punctuality class, first off, it'd be hilarious to have a starting time at 9:30. Like, we actually expect it going at 10 o'clock. We just
it's in the
Connor
air.
says, Roberto's always napping and Drew is always talking. Just got to blend them a little better. LOL. It's a good thing I'm allowed to stay up this late for this, or I'd be in trouble. LOL. Ooh, digital clock. They should be okay now. And then he said, yay, our daddies are here. But first off, we don't have any children together, Rob and I. We're not that kind of couple.
Or any kids that we both know of.
Yeah. I don't think so.
Yeah.
That one.
Been full before, but whatever.
Connor says, I'll take 10 tight ends. This is why you were not the GM of the Giants. Deb says, what in the heck is Waller going to decide? Ridiculous. Honestly, again, I don't want to keep talking about this part of it there because I don't have anything to validate it. I've heard a lot of rumors that he's dealing with issues with CTE. If that's the case, from what I've heard, and again, these aren't sources that I want to sit there and say are legitimate to where I would say this is what's going on, folks. I'm just saying it's the only news I've heard from these sources. And there's nothing that I can see that anybody's backed up in the actual media or anything like that to say, okay, this is true. But if it is, from everything I'm hearing, he wants to play. It's just he's dealing with after effects and he's worried about the long-term effects and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, if that's the case, I get it. You can want to play and be afraid to play at the same time. If anything, the fact that he's taking so long tells me he does want to play. If he didn't want to play, just stop already. It's not the money. He's got enough money. He's made enough money.
Right. And listen, he's overcome a lot of different things. So
can't overcome Daniel Jones as a quarterback. but
I'm just saying, like you said, he obviously wants to play. He wants to try to maybe overcome CTE, but who does that? Because look at Chris Benoit.
Yeah, I mean, again, you got to worry about your long-term health. So Connor says Waller better not retire. He needs to make up for the lack of playing. Yeah, that's just him at this point. I'm sorry, but that is. He says, did you say tit? And that's what we're talking about, tip. He says, just a tip, honey, swear. He
just
said,
a tit, honey. Just one.
Pert got dealt. We're going to talk about that. No, Pert was a free agent. Aquera was retiring. Yeah, Romeo Aquera can retire all he wants. I have no love for that guy whatsoever. He bashed the Giants like you wouldn't believe. When he was in Detroit, he even said he hoped his brother went nowhere near Giants. So, yeah, he definitely falls in that category of once a Giant, not always a Giant. Connor says, thought you said wiry. I love that part of the Replaces movie about the kicker. He's wiry. I mean, it's a wiry thing. Yeah. Some people use that word. He says, I prefer tit, LOL. He says, did you ever notice how we end up picking free agent guys or trades and then they suck for us so they don't play after we sign them? They got to do better at picking guys up. Let me just put it this way to you guys. If a player is very, very good, he doesn't usually hit the open market. Teams that go and trade somebody is because of one reason. Either they don't think they have the physical talent anymore, or they're too much of a headache and they're not worth it. That's typically what it is. People don't go, oof, you know what I got? I got this great player. Team player, never causes issues, good leader in the locker room. Every year he just excels. He does very good. Let's trade him.
I'm going to say that's like 75, maybe 2/3 of the time. That's the case.
The only time someone trades someone in that scenario like that, that's a good player that doesn't cause issues, blah, 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 is if it's somebody that they're going to lose in free agency and they want to trade him before they lose him.
I was going to say there's that. And
Look at Brian Burns. Brian Burns, the classic example there with us, doing that this season.
Yeah, and now it's up to us to pay him. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we just overpaid him, but that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
Connor says, did you get your GED? Chris Rock says, good enough diploma. No, we were high school graduates, goddammit.
Yeah.
In fact,
I have diploma.
I have my technician's degree in auto mechanics, too, on top of that.
Oh,
yeah.
You fancy.
Fancy like Applebee's on a date night. Deb says, Connor, that's because we seem to pick up people with previous injuries. You get what you pay for. 100%. 100%. We love picking up free agents and drafting players and trading for players with injuries. Luckily, Spida has no injury history there. So,
well, it's like us going right now to Walmart to the DVD bin on clearance. That's a free agency right now with injuries.
Yeah, but every so often there's a Blu-ray disc in there.
Yeah, but it's like Transformers 7.5. Not even the full sequel.
That's the good one when the robots dress up and drag. Connor says, I know, Deb, still, let's get guys that will get better, or what's the point of getting them? Give a younger guy a chance. Again, that's what we got to do in the drafts. That's what we got to do. Draft. We've been saying that forever. That's why we talk about the draft so much with you guys beforehand, so you guys know the players and what the options are. Connor says 10 tight ends, as in 10 female booties. Tight ends, Drew. Oh.
Some guys have tight ends too, Drew. And Connor.
Tight end.
Well then. I also squat. How do you feel?
Connor says, that's my point. Don't pick up guys with maybe pick up guys, young guys, rather give them a chance. Yeah. Again, we have a young team.
And the best way to improve your team is through the draft. Not picking up, not trading. It is through the draft.
This is why I love trading down and getting more draft picks.
Yeah. You want to build a depth team, you do it through the draft with a lot of draft picks.
If you notice during their heyday, besides the fact they had Tom Brady, one of the things the Patriots did very well was trade down, and just collect the shnikey load of picks. Keep on, re-going with that roster at that point. And that's what we got to do, as he says, Roberto. All right.
Ruh-roh.
Let's get into our top 5. Ooh, we're halfway there. Living on a prayer.
Whoa.
Next up, we have Jaheim Bell out of Florida State. And you're probably going, here's another guy with 2 schools again. What the hell? Florida State last year, but the prior 3 seasons that he was playing at South Carolina. That's why the video's got him in South Carolina garbs there. 6'2", 241 pounds, 22 years old. Has lined up as a fullback plenty of times in his career as well. So he's got that ability too if you want to go to old school. 13 games, 39 receptions for 503 yards, 2 touchdowns. 4 rushes for 2 yards and a touchdowns, and a 73.4 PFF. That's not a bad grade there. Year before, keep in mind this is him in South Carolina. They used him a whole lot more as a fullback, H-back, tight end combo kind of deal there. 12 games, 25 receptions for 231 yards, 73 rushes. For 261 yards, which is a 3.6 yard per carry average, by the way, in case you're wondering. And he had 5 touchdowns overall. So, I mean, this is a guy that's got some experience doing a couple different types of roles at that point there. But he wanted the chance to go ahead and show that he actually can be a receiving type of tight end. As far as the pros, very explosive, twitchy. Could call him wiry, Connor, if you want. He's got good yak ability. And again, he's got that fullback ability. He played well when he was a fullback at South Carolina there. So, if you want a guy that's going to play that kind of role at that point, if you don't have a full-time fullback, but you want a guy who plays tight end to occasionally go into that kind of role, this is a good get for you. Cons-wise, he did struggle against the press. Again, he's just 241 pounds there, so I think some of that might be the weight issue there. One thing to keep an eye on that didn't affect him in college, but he did tear his ACL back in high school, so you kind of wanted to keep an eye and make sure the medical stuff matches up and everything's good there. And he also didn't play in line much, even though he was playing tight end position. He was more like a big slot guy over in Florida State there. So, if you want him to play the traditional inline tight end, you got to teach him that. And that's going to be a process there because, again, he didn't play full-time tight end. He was tight end / fullback for much of his career there. So there's going to be some rawness there. I think he's going to be a 4th-round pick. I think he's going to be a guy that you're going to see. I actually think Theo Johnson, that we just talked about prior to him, will be drafted ahead of him. But I think that Jaheim Bell's got a little more potential. And I think he's one of those guys that, again, could be a very good backup tight end in this league. There's not a lot of guys in this draft I'm going to tell you to be good starters. But this is, again, a guy that I think is a good backup. And as we said, a lot of the guys that get drafted later on, sometimes that turns into be the guys who become the best tight ends in this NFL. So this is one of those guys that could develop and become one of these household names at the tight end position there, going to tight end U every single off season and everything. So, but yeah, this is a decent player. If we were like the 4th, 5th round or something like that, and this guy popped up, he'd be too good for us to pass up, in my mind.
Agreed. Yeah.
Especially he's been a fullback.
I was about to say he's a blocker. That's why he's got a higher PFF grade. You put him at fullback. You can put him in the line. You can put him outside the line. You can teach him the line a little bit. You can fool defenses on if he's going to block, if he's going to run.
Oh yeah.
Especially without having Barkley, like you got to put a little beef in the backfield over there.
Beef. It's what's for
beefcake.
Beefcake.
He could use a little beefcake. Yeah.
Beefcake.
Put him to the north side of 250.
Yeah, like you said, that's
beefcake 5,000.
That's where you're going to start seeing, I think, some changes with him. I think is if he learns to play the inline spot. That's the big thing. If he can learn to do that, it's gonna, like I said, it's gonna be a different ball game at that point for him. And I think it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with him overall, see how he develops. He's someone to kind of keep an eye on. All right. Number four. Oh, yes. Ben Sinnott out of Kansas State. Going to Kansas City. Here we go. 6'4", 250 pounds. Still just 21 years old, so really young. Started actually as a walk-on, as a fullback. And they converted him over to be a tight end. And so he's got a little bit of rawness still to him. But this is one of the guys, this is probably the first guy that I could say, you know what? Maybe he's a starter of this league. Well, you notice a lot of the guys I've said back up unless they develop higher. This guy, he's got that potential to be a starter of this league. He still needs a little development. I wouldn't start him year one.
Yes.
But he's got some potential here. Last year, 12 games, 49 receptions, 676 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 82.0 PFF grade. Year before, 14 games, 31 receptions, 447 yards, and 4 touchdowns. As far as the pros and cons of there, he's great at coming out of breaks. So if you want somebody all of a sudden to hit that hitch route, that hook route at that point, which obviously is much of what you see a lot of tight ends do at that point. So they're not particularly the quick guy who can, just burn out the corner at that point if they happen to have somebody like that on them. He's good at making those quick moves. He's very speedy overall for a tight end, though. He's got good hands.
Yeah, for a guy that's, 250 pounds and probably will get bigger. He is a very, very fast guy, very agile.
Yeah. His blocking needs some work though, and honestly, it's got a low ceiling. It's so bad that I don't think he's ever going to be the guy that you go, oh, this is that two-way tight end that blocks and catches. He's going to be mostly a receiving tight end. That's what he's going to be. But but the big thing is you want to see if you can develop a guy that just doesn't embarrass himself. That's all, blocking wise.
And just also, like you said, like he started as a walk-on fullback. That's another guy that you could put in the backfield on the line and, in a slot.
Yep. He also doesn't have great athletics. We talked about his speed. His speed's good, but it's just that overall freakish athletic kind of abilities, the twitchiness, the stop on a dime kind of change direction kind of stuff. He just doesn't have it. But he's very raw still, and that's also goes in the combat. It goes in the pros as well, because he did good things there in Kansas State, and before he went there, he was never a tight end. That's a key thing of this. He's still learning the position. So you go, okay, maybe he develops into something good. Like I said, I got to give him like a year as a backup, and I think within a year or so, he's going to be a potential starter in this league. I really do. I think like the end of the third round is where I would see him going at that point there. And I do think the number we have for him would be where he'll be taken in the draft. I think it'd be the fourth tight end taken overall in this draft.
Yeah, most likely. Maybe high fourth. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him at the end of the third.
Yeah. Next up, another interesting one here. Cade Stover. What's up, Kate? Cade Stover out of Ohio State there. There we go. So we talked about Cade before because actually we mocked him in one of our mock drafts we had that we did on the show there. 6'4", 247 pounds, 23 years old. So good size. Also played linebacker and edge while he was there in Ohio State, particularly early on years there. Wasn't the best at it, but started off his career that way. Obviously, he was good in high school at it. Would have made it to Ohio State otherwise. But yeah, they saw he had some good hands. So they converted him over to a tight end and went pretty well. He's also a former basketball player at Ohio State as well. So two sport kind of guy. Last year, 12 games, 41 receptions, 576 yards, 5 touchdowns, a 75.6 PFF grade.
Looks like that, that linebacker edge position helped out with some of that PFF grade.
So some of that apparently. Last year in 22, 13 games, 36 receptions, 406 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Now, one issue we come across right now with him is he actually hurt himself at the combine. So you really need to look at the medical and see what's going on there. He had a back injury. Actually, I was actually at the combine. I'm sorry. He hurt himself at the Peach Bowl, and that kept him out of the combine. So we'll have to see if we get any kind of individual pro day for him or something like that, so the teams have a chance to take a look at him. He's explosive. He's fast. He's a good blocker, but he's also raw. He needs to improve his route tree. And I don't think his ceiling is ever going to be elite, but I think it's going to be good to above average. I think he'll be a good starting tight end of this league here. But you're going to have to kind of take a little bit of the bad with the good as far as, the fact that he's very raw. But anytime you can get the kind of numbers we just showed you there with somebody who's also good to block. I mean, his numbers aren't that far off necessarily from Ben. We just talked about in Kansas State before him. So talking 40 more yards their second to last season, 100-yard difference the senior year here, the last year. But overall, not that huge of a difference for a guy who's a whole lot better of a blocker.
Yeah, and you put the raw in the cons. And to me, like that rawness, maybe should be waived above con. Maybe not so much in pro, but you have to talk about the rawness. Like when you talk about a guy that literally came
so raw,
dirty and raw
tight end.
But when you come in that line, so when you come When you come to college and you're on the offensive line,
Ooh,
that's
yeah.
how you got drafted. That's how you got to Ohio State. Like, is being a good, linebacker, edge position, but you get converted to a tight end. That just tells me you're a really good blocker, and you also have hands. So, like, being raw in that position, like, it's not necessarily a bad thing because he's still learning to be like a runner instead of sitting there and waiting for a block and a tackle. So, like, there's a lot of room for growth. There's a high ceiling here. So that rawness, going back to it, it's not necessarily a bad thing.
And he's a guy that I think will start from day one. I really do, depending on who picks him up. I mean, if somebody who picks him up has an established tight end and wants him as a really high-quality backup, I get that option too. But if you need a good starting tight end, we get the big three here, and they're really the guys that you want. I mean, the number 2 and number 3 at that point, you probably want to have a decent veteran backup just for some guidance and for just in case they're not as good as we think they are. But I mean, they're this is kind of the cream of the crop, kind of this position here. Now we're getting into. So he's also going to be probably a 3rd round pick. I would say probably early to mid 3rd round at that point there. I think someone will take him there. But it all depends really on where the number 2 guy we're about to talk about in a minute goes, because I think once he goes, you're going to start people saying, okay, well, there's 3 really good tight ends here. We got to make sure we get one of them. Let's take this guy now.
This number 2 drops. Number 3 is going pretty fast behind him.
Yeah, because like I said, Ben Sinnott is the number 4 there. He needs some work there at that point there, especially at blocking. So do you really want to put yourself in to count on a guy who's not the best at blocking to be your starting tight end, depending on what kind of offense you have, obviously. But for a lot of offenses, that won't work. It won't. So, all right. Number two. Who does number 2 work for? We'll find out during the draft. JaTavion Sanders out of Texas. All righty. So 6'4", 245 pounds, just 20 years old, guys. Really young. Another guy who played on defense as a freshman. So he's still, again, learning the position. Last year, 14 games, 45 receptions, 682 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 rush for 12 yards, a 75.6 PFF grade. The year before, 13 games, 54 receptions, 613 yards, 5 touchdowns. So 2 really good back-to-back similar seasons there. The big difference when you look at JaTavion Sanders versus Kate Stover is, do you want the guy that's the better receiver, or do you want the guy who is the better blocker? Sanders is the better receiver. Stover is the better blocker. But I do think if it was me, I'd go for the receiver. Again, depending on what I already have on the roster, just because I feel like there's a lot of really good blocking tight ends out there in this league. There's only a handful of really special receiving tight ends. There's only so many of the, even like the T.J. Hawkinsons and people like that of this NFL. I'm not even going to the George Kittles and the Travis Kelce's. I'm saying even of that ilk, and they make a huge difference when you have them. On the pro side, athletic, good hands, can high point the ball very well as well. He's definitely got that former basketball player kind of mentality, Antonio Gates. I don't know if he played in high school. I didn't see anything about him playing in college. I did look for it. Very fast as well for his size. As far as his cons, the blocking is where it comes into. He's a really bad run blocker. So he's not necessarily running from it, though, no pun intended. So, maybe, again, he can improve in that. He's decent at best at pass blocking. So he's not horrible at that, but he's not then to go, I need to get him to really shore up that pass blocking. No. But if you got to keep him in line because you got an extra rusher and you want to make a change at the line at that point, you're not going to regret having him there either. But he's another guy who's very raw again. He started off, like I said, he played high school primarily at defense. He got brought into Texas to be a defender. And they just saw the potential and switched him up at that point there. I have him going like late second, early third is where I think he's going to end up going in this draft there. But he could very well go mid to high second. That wouldn't shock me either because there's only one guy ahead of him, and he's going to go very early on. So it's a matter of how desperate does whoever not get this first guy that needs a tight end go, you know, we better get this guy while we can.
Yeah, I see him on the lower part of the second round, but you're right. Once the numero uno guy goes, it's
yeah.
Depending
on I don't think it'd be first round. He's not a first round talent, but it wouldn't shock me for somebody that we think is like a late second to go in the early second just because somebody wants to fill a need. You should never draft that way, but plenty of people do.
Yeah. People get stuck.
Exactly. So, all righty. We got one more, guys. That's it. One more guy. I told you we don't have not a lot of tight ends to talk about here. So,
we got 2.5 hour episode. What's going on here?
I know. Not like Monday. Whew, I'm still tired from Monday. Number one should be no surprise. Anybody knows about this position in the draft. Brock Bowers. Oh, yeah. And this guy, I'm telling you right now, is like the most sought after tight end in a draft in a long time. A long time. You know, he's just, there's something special about this kid. And if you watch him, you can see it. You know, I don't think that I've seen a guy come out with this much hype probably since Kyle Pitts. And the difference between him and Kyle Pitts is he's a good blocker. He's not a receiving tight end specifically. So out of Georgia, obviously 6'3", 243 pounds, 21 years old. So still pretty young too. Last year, 10 games, 714 yards, 6 touchdowns. Again, 10 games, guys. Wasn't 12, wasn't 13. 6 rushes for 28 yards and a touchdown, 84.4 PFF grade. And I believe that's the highest by far of anybody else we had. I think we had a couple get low, but that's just about mid 80s there at that point there. Prior year in 22, 15 games, 942 yards, 7 touchdowns, 9 rushes, 109 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Anytime you break 1,000 total yards at tight end, you're doing something right. You're doing something 100%. Right. Athletic, good route running. He's a total coverage mismatch because he's that. I know it's said in a lot of guys. Listen, I sometimes I cringe when I hear this myself when I'm watching a game and they say this because they say it about almost every good tight end. But for Brock Bowers, it's true what I'm about to say. He's too big for a corner to cover, and he's too fast for a linebacker to cover. You almost need that freak of nature tweener kind of linebacker that's got that safety speed and that hitting ability of a linebacker. And that's who you really need to have on him. Like an Isaiah Simmons kind of like player at that point there, athletic wise. I'm not even sure Isaiah Simmons to be the guy I want on him. I don't think he necessarily is that good on coverage compared to this, but I'm saying like that kind of athletic ability is what you want. On the con wise, he is a bit small. He could use a couple pounds. Like I said, I like to have my tight ends over 250 if I can. But 243 is not that far off. We're really picking because there's not much to pick on, to be very frank. He's also has a little bit of trouble sometimes boxing out. So like if you get him in that tight coverage kind of spot at the end zone or right in the sideline at that point, you need him to box the guy out. He's just not his specialty. But again, no player's perfect. And
that's something that could be worked on.
Of course, anything can be worked on. It's a matter of whether that work's actually going to change.
Not anything can be worked on, but
yes, it can. I can work on trying to be taller if I wanted to. It's probably not going to do anything.
I was going to say, how are you going to work on it though?
I can stretch myself. Yeah.
And then gravity in next couple of
half
a day is going to make it short again.
I can stretch myself and stay laying down for a while, so that way gravity doesn't have the effect on me. I mean, there's definitely things I can do to make myself gain an inch or two.
That's not going to make you better a ball player, though.
I didn't say that. I'm just
it may lack anything.
Proving a point that you can work on anything.
Not really. Gravity's gravity, man. You go right back to where you were.
Okay, now I have Defying Gravity in my head from Wicked. It's a good show, by the way. I'm looking forward to the movie when it finally comes out. It should be good.
The play?
Should be good. Yeah. Yeah, the play, yeah. Are you going to hear about that? They're making a movie out of it. I heard
they're making a movie. I didn't know there was a show.
Yeah,
I saw the play.
It was a book, then it became the play, and now the play is becoming a movie.
Oh, they said it was a show.
Ariana Grande's in it. She apparently slept around one of the guys on the movie at that point. Well, I guess he slept around too as well. It takes two to tango, and both of them were married, so this caused all kinds of issues and the gossip columns and all over it. But yeah, but yeah, anyway, to get off of the Wicked category and Ariana Grande's cheating habits, Brock Bowers, like I said, he's going to be a stud wherever he goes, and it's funny because I think he's going to be a top 10 pick. But there's a lot of guys, and I feel like if it was any other draft, he'd be like a top 5 pick. He's that good. But when you have 3 to 4 quarterbacks going to go in the top 10 potentially, if not top 5, and then you have 3 really good receivers, and at least one tackle that you can probably call a stud. We'll get to the tackle talk later, obviously next episode here, but it's a little more top heavy this draft than a lot of the prior drafts have been, because I really think in a lot of drafts, if he had come out any of the year, basically he'd be probably a top 5 pick. He's that good.
100%. And I also think from everything you just said, like he might get edged out of the top 10 pick, but he's not far off just based off talent. And it's not anything against him. It's more of the positional value of what is available coming out of the draft. And it's definitely not a knock out of him, because there is a freak athlete coming out of this draft in that tight end position. And just like you said, too fast for a linebacker, too big for a corner, too furious for the safety.
Well, I mean, here's how I look at it. Okay, so we got the Bears, the Commanders, the Patriots. We're pretty much thinking quarterback.
Like we said before, top six, quarterback, receiver,
wide receiver for Cardinals, Chargers, and us. The Titans are up next at that point. The Titans have a young tight end. They have offensive line issues. I would think they go get a guy like Joe Alt. The Falcons already have Pitts. They're not going to go ahead and take him at that point.
Nope.
So what you're really looking at is the Bears, but they got Cole Kmet. They want to get a second, really good tight end. Then you got the Jets, who could use a guy like him, and I think Aaron Rodgers would like having him. But then you got the Vikings, who already have TJ Hawkinson. Then you got Broncos. I mean, it's like if the Bears or the Jets don't want him, I feel like he could drop out of the top 10. Those are the two guys that you would think.
Listen, I wouldn't be surprised if he drops out, and it's not because he's not talented. It's just because the positional player value and what is coming out of this draft.
Oh, yeah.
But he definitely will go early in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see real quick for where Brock Bowers even is projected to go here in there. Yeah, Brock Bowers, if you go to the draft position on most people's mocks, they have him anywhere from 9 to 11 is what Fantasy Pros is showing at that point there. So, yeah. Again, I can see him dropping to 12 even for the Broncos, but he's not making it past that. And again, whoever gets him, I think he's going to be a really special player. I don't think, and it's really rare to hear this. And you'll hear me often talk about the fact that tight end is a position that you don't necessarily want to count on as a rookie. It takes some time to develop. This kid's going to go in day one, and he's going to be a really good day one. You might have a few bumps in the road. He'll improve over time. Don't get me wrong. That part will still be there as part of it, as any rookie.
Freshman hiccups.
Yeah. But he is going to be something special. I'm telling you right now. He's going to be potentially the best tight end you see coming out of the draft. And I think he's better than Pitts. I think he's going to be like the best tight end coming out of the draft. I'm trying to even think who the last one with this kind of hype. I mean, there's just not really anybody I can think of to compare him to.
It's really hard, especially at where he's projected to go. Like, it's easy to say, since Travis Kelce, but guess what? Travis Kelce was
a hype like that.
Yeah.
People knew he was a jerk back then. They didn't want to draft him. Let's be honest.
Same thing with Kettle. Same thing, No Fein had a lot of hype too, but
yeah, T.J. Hawkinson had a lot of hype as well. Kellen Winslow Jr. when he got drafted had a lot of hype out of him. Jeremy Shockey.
played pretty well for us.
Yeah, I mean, but I could see him having a Shockey kind of rookie year, and Shockey had a really good rookie year, guys. Yeah. But I could see him having that kind of rookie year, but without the attitude.
Yes.
He doesn't have that personality, and that's not a bad thing, guys. Not to knock even Shockey for it at that point, but he's a little more wholesome, a little more quiet. So, all right. Let's get a little bit of Giants news here, guys, before we head on out, and then we're going to go ahead and obviously we had a couple more questions here we're going to go through as well here for you guys here. But we do have some Giants news. We signed somebody today. We lost a couple players today, so let's talk about it.
It's time for the news.
So the re-signing, I'll start with that. Somebody I'm kind of shocked we brought back again. Darnay Holmes re-signed to a 1-year contract there. Haven't seen any word on money yet, so I don't know if it's just purely a camp invite kind of contract or if it's a legit contract. But listen, he's like a bad penny. Like, they've been trying to get rid of him for years, but they keep bringing him back for some reason. So, my thoughts on him. Not too big a fan. I mean, there's a lot worse out there in the league. Don't get me wrong, but I just feel like he doesn't always show up at the biggest moments. He gets some really bad pass, defensive holding kind of calls and stuff like that on him, pass interference calls at some of the worst times in the game.
You get some good rubs on the sideline.
Yeah, it's still weird, the thing. But yeah, he's back. Now, who's not back? Jihad Ward signed today with the Minnesota Vikings, and Rob and I were very clear on that from the get-go. Once Wink was gone, there was no Jihad Ward. He was probably not coming back. So yeah, once
you see him and license plate guy on Twitter or X.
Who? No.
Him and license. Oh, so he put out in his X account, his Twitter account. A little bit. I don't know if it was tongue in cheek, but he put up that he's going to the Minnesota Vikings, and then you see license plate guy just respond with just like 12 middle finger emojis going across.
I see that now. It went up 6 hours ago. Ooh.
And Darnay Holmes answers with like a crying, like rolling on the floor laughing like 3 times with another 6 middle fingers going back at him.
Oh, he even says right here about it being a joke. He said, "I wish him well. I wish I could have told the other guy good luck."
Oh, okay, I didn't see that part.
Yeah. But apparently this is a thing they had back and forth for a while. I don't know. We're not the Twitter people that are on nonstop who know these things, but apparently it's a normal thing they did back and forth.
Yeah, I looked at it, it looked
shocked because
tongue in cheek.
LPG's always been that guy who's gotten along with every single player, pretty much. I mean, we have one more guy we lost today, guys. I know you're gonna cry. Break out your tissues beforehand, guys, because I don't know how we'll get over this loss. Offensive tackle Matt Pert today signed with the Denver Broncos.
I'm
in shock.
They got so much better.
I'm in shock. I thought year 17 would be the one for him. Feels like we should have given up on that guy years ago. We also had a free agent visit there. Offensive lineman Matt Nelson, formerly of the Detroit Lions, made a free agent visit with the Giants there today. He was an undrafted free agent back in 2020. He's gone back and forth between being a backup and a starter. Probably his biggest year was he started 11 of his 13 games at right tackle back in 21. And right tackle is primarily where he plays most of his action there. He missed all of last year with an ankle injury. I don't want to bury the lead here with this whole story, so I'm going to say it again. He plays mostly right tackle. He has started right tackle before. Am I being obvious enough? I hope so. I'm not trying to be shy about this. They're bringing in more and more right tackle competition. I'm telling you right now, Evan Neal will not start at right tackle this year. And if he does, we're burning down MetLife. Burn it down to the ground.
Who normally flips over burgers at right tackle?
Exactly. I'm telling you. Watch him be a bench player. Because if they're getting other guys who they think could play right tackle, watch them put Luminor over at guard, and then put somebody like this at right tackle, and Evan Neal is now sitting on the bench as a swing tackle.
And all the fans coming in with burgers to throw at him.
Oh my gosh, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad. But as a family, we good. That's what matters because we pay the bills. We pay the bills. Remember that, guys. All right, guys. So that's it for tonight here. Appreciate you guys watching. And we do have a scheduling change we're going to announce real quick as well. So obviously we usually do Thursday night.
Tomorrow night.
Yeah. So we're going to change up here. And we're going to do Friday night instead. What at 8 o'clock on Friday, Rob?
Yeah, sounds good.
8 o'clock on Friday we're going to do, guys. So he's got something booked there Thursday night, so we're not able to do that. That's on me. I'll take the blame on that one. I'm going to Disney again. But we're hoping to get a pre-tape beforehand so we can have it on Thursday for like usual. We're just a little behind on some of the notes here for drafting, for scouting some of these draft players here. So want to make sure we do it right.
I was also taking a nap before the show. Just couldn't do it.
Listen, we're never going to rush the episode and do it wrong for you guys there because we want to be where you all can, have your water cooler talk at work about different people that are draftable and all that kind of fun stuff there. So, and actually feel like what's going on. So let's go through the questions here before we head on out here. Connor says, this is why Giants should hire us to bounce off our recommendations. If it pans out, we get a bonus check. Win-win. No, we get a goddamn bonus check no matter what, Connor. How many GMs are wrong and still get paid a ton of money? Deb says, is it easier to teach a blocking tight end to catch or to teach a catching tight end to block, or can't be done?
It depends on the scenario and the individual, but I'm going to say it's probably easier to learn how to block a little better than it learns how to catch because you either got hands or you don't, but you still got a big body that could be in the way of someone else.
And it depends on the individual. Like I said, there was, when we talked about this there, we had said that, Jared Wiley, let's use him as a good example out of TCU. He's aggressive with his blocking. He's just not very good at it. So he has the will, just not the technique. That's a guy that as long as he's coachable, it's very easy to teach him that. And he may not ever be great at blocking, but it's easy to improve his blocking. Now, if you get a guy that's a little more stubborn and stuck in his ways and doesn't have the will to do it, then that's more difficult. So I would say it's probably equal on him, but it's really more dependent as far as the player and the individual than it is on the skill they're lacking, if that makes sense.
Correct. There's also a reason why some receivers move to cornerback because you can't improve certain hand skills and catching the ball.
No, you either have good hands.
So when you're a blocking tight end, how much can you improve catching the ball compared to if you're 260 pounds and you can catch the ball, but you're not blocking very well? And I agree. And that's what I said before. It depends on the individual on certain cases.
It does.
But if you got big body person, and if you put them to block and they set up an extra, 1 second for your running back or your quarterback, but you could teach them to give them 2 seconds, even though the best guy coming out of the draft gives them 3 seconds, you still made a significant improvement on how your line's going to uphold.
And I feel like there's 3 things that you really can't teach: speed, hands, and size. Because we can want a guy to be 270 pounds like Tip Raymond is out there in Illinois, but let's be honest, Dallin Hawker out of Colorado State there is probably never going to add 30 more pounds onto him and be Tip size.
No.
And you probably don't want him to be because he serves a different role, but I'm just using it as an example. Like, sometimes you just can't add size, and sometimes you max out for what you need to be at that point. Sometimes you can't teach hands to get better. It's not technique, it's just not good hands. Sometimes you can't teach a guy to speed. You're going to be speedy faster at that point. It's not always a technique thing. Now, sometimes with technique, you can help improve their speed overall. Get the right stride formation, that kind of stuff, and you can help it a little bit. But everybody's got a ceiling, and that's what it really boils down to. Like I said, I hate to give kind of a no answer to Deb there because we love Deb there, but it's the honest truth. It's much more about who the player is and what skills they need to, what their ceiling is in those particular skills than it is on if they're a blocking tight end you want to teach to catch or a catching tight end you want to teach to block. So
correct. Like, you're never going to teach a Lauren Cater to be a better blocker.
I disagree with that because he's a converted wide receiver, and I think he's been working on that.
So
he's probably better now than he was when he first came in.
So you agreed originally what I just said then. Fantastic.
What?
I just said it's usually easier to teach a anyway. But is he going to be the stud blocking?
Probably not.
Tight end.
Probably never.
Yeah.
Probably never. All right. We got Sports Fiend says, damn, I just tuned in. LOL. Any mention of my guy Ben Sinat? Yeah, he was number 4 was he for us, I believe? Yeah, number 4. So yeah, you'll have to go a little bit towards when we're done here towards the middle there. We'll talk about him there. But we do plan to eventually go ahead and get everybody over to on YouTube. We're going to do draft profiles for each of the individual players as well, which will be cut from these episodes here too. So anything you miss or any player you want to learn up on at that point there, we will have those all up there for you guys. Hopefully this weekend I can go through and do that kind of stuff there for us because we got a lot to put up there. And if I put too much up at once, YouTube gets mad and scolds me. They do. They get mad. I don't know why. They really do. They're like, you're spamming us. And they'll just stop showing it to people because they're like, you're putting up too much. I'm sorry, too much? You can never have enough goofballs, okay? Yeah. The people sit there and say, oh, this is too much chocolate. I can't take anymore. No.
Go, oh, it's a spicy goofball.
The people say, this is too much cheese. I can't take this. No.
Blasphemy.
Something you can't have enough of. The goofballs are one of them. So, again, guys, we will see you guys at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Fridays. We got a little bit of schedule change this week here. Again, we'll be going over all the top tackles. We're going to do 15 tackles coming into this draft here for you guys. So a lot of the big names obviously will be there. And I can tell you this, one of the rankings that we have will be completely different than where a lot of people have one individual person here. I don't want to give it away, but there's one guy I think is very overrated in this draft here. So be prepared to be shocked and amazed. As always, we are live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter/X, Twitch, and of course, Instagram when I remember to start it, which I did today. Hello, Instagram. Yes. And of course, Rob's favorite,
Drew's LinkedIn page
profile. Oh, yes. And of course, we're always available the next day on all the audio podcast platforms at 5 a.m. Eastern. Is when I usually set the episodes to drop. They're on, of course, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all the big ones there, Amazon, Google Podcasts, you pretty much name it, we're on it there. So appreciate you guys for listening in as always. And like I said, hope you guys enjoyed the show there. It's I always hate to go because the longer we're on, the higher the ticks of people that are watching are on here. We're almost at 100 people watching right now. Appreciate you guys for listening. And as always, if you missed part of it, again, go ahead at the backtrack there, start at the beginning. Keep in mind, Wednesday, we also did all the top 20 wide receivers there. And we also did, a week or two ago, we did all the top 6 quarterbacks, the big ones there. We're living long and prosper here? Okay. And,
Yeah, I did that for Connor.
okay. Oh, is that Connor? The comment section causing trouble again. Oh, he says, bye. Don't be late next time. You'll be known as the lazy goofballs. Remember, Connor, it's Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Just saying. I know he hates when we change the
maybe
time.
8:05.
Yeah, maybe 8:05, depending on how late Rob is. Oh. All righty, guys. We'll see you guys again Friday. Appreciate you guys as always. And as always, Giant fans, go G-Man!
Thanks for listening to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. We appreciate your support.
Thanks so much.